There was a time when the church association hosted a grand annual youth camp, uniting young people from various congregations. It was a tradition filled with faith, fellowship, and unforgettable experiences, drawing eager participants from far and wide. Among them was a young college girl named Zara, who, along with her sister, eagerly enrolled in the youth camp, a journey that promised new friendships, spiritual growth, and the thrill of the unknown. The camp took place in a distant district, with each church group welcomed into the homes of local families. Zara's church, however, was assigned to an old, abandoned house, its owner still living nearby, yet leaving the eerie residence untouched. The camp held 5 spiritual services over 3 days, surrounded by breathtaking scenery and filled with warm, welcoming people. Each morning, the girls were to take turns preparing breakfast. Zara's group was assigned to make breakfast on the second morning, but waking up early had never been her strength. Knowing this, she turned to her sister. "Can you handle it for me?" she asked in her sweet voice. Her sister, understanding Zara's struggle, simply nodded. "I've got it." Grateful, Zara felt relieved, knowing she was in good hands. However, that night, as they prepared for bed, an unshakable unease settled over Zara. She couldn't explain why. A verse from the Bible, Mark 16:17-18, kept echoing in her mind. She knew the verse by heart and began to meditate on it, repeating the words over and over until she suddenly felt the warmth and comfort in her heart. Slowly, a deep peace settled within her, and her eyelids grew heavy. She was the last to fall asleep, or so she thought. The next morning, the girls woke before dawn, but Zara was the last to stir. As she slowly opened her eyes, she saw her sister sitting beside her, wearing a black sweater with a Batman design. "What's the time?" Zara mumbled sleepily. Her sister didn't answer, absorbed in her phone. Still drowsy, Zara let her eyes drift shut and slipped back into sleep. When she woke again, it was sudden. She glanced around. Her sister was gone. How much time had passed? She couldn't tell. Later, that evening, Zara had to leave the camp earlier than planned. The college authorities had announced that students had to collect their results in person. As she arrived home, she felt slightly unwell, but excitement bubbled within her. She had passed her exams. Now all that was left was to wait. She eagerly anticipated her sister's return, ready to share the news. The next day, as the camp came to an end, Zara's sister finally returned home. Excited, Zara shared her good news, and in return, her sister recounted the fun activities and uplifting services they had experienced. Then, with a small sigh, her sister said, "I have one regret. I never wore my favorite sweater. I packed it for a special service, but I never got the chance to wear it." Zara froze. "What do you mean? I saw you wearing it that morning, and you were sitting beside me when I first opened my eyes. I even tried to speak to you, but you did not respond." Her sister looked confused. "No, I didn't. It stayed packed the whole time." Then her sister shared something unsettling that had happened the night Zara left. "I got into an argument with 2 girls over something silly," she said. "Later, they sat in the room, gossiping about me. Another girl overheard everything." She paused, her expression darkening. "And then, something terrifying happened." Zara leaned in, her pulse quickening. The 2 girls saw a figure walk past the corridor. Her sister continued, lowering her voice. They swore they heard the soft jingling of anklets as it moved. She hesitated before adding, "But here's the thing. There's only one way into that corridor, and that's through this room, where they were at that moment." The girls panicked, their fear consuming them. Screaming, they bolted from the room, their sudden outburst startling everyone nearby. Others rushed toward them, confused, as they breathlessly recounted what had happened, how they had been gossiping about Zara's sister when, out of nowhere, an eerie figure drifted past the corridor. Whispers of fear spread quickly, reaching the church leaders and eventually the house owner. A heavy silence fell as he finally spoke. With a weary sigh, he admitted, "This house was abandoned for a reason. Years ago, their maid had taken her own life in that very room. Ever since, strange and unexplainable things had haunted the house. Objects moved on their own, whispers filled the night, and shadowy figures appeared where no one should be. Unable to endure the unsettling presence any longer, the family had moved out, leaving the house behind, to its silence and whatever still lingered inside." Zara and her sister exchanged a knowing glance. A silent understanding passed between them. They had not been alone in that house, but one thing was undeniable. Zara's unease that night, the restless stirring in her spirit, and the persistent echo of that Bible verse had all been part of God's divine protection. Through His Word, He had shielded her from the unseen darkness that lingers in the world. And that morning, when she had opened her eyes and saw her sister sitting beside her in the black sweater, it wasn't truly her sister. Yet, praise God, for though something had lurked so close, it had no power over her. Unlike the two girls who had encountered it in a chilling, undeniable way, she had been covered by His presence. By human reasoning, there had been no reason to fear that night. After all, she had been surrounded by 19 other girls in the same room. But God had spoken to her, preparing her heart and shielding her in ways she hadn't yet understood. This moment became her testimony, a truth she would carry for the rest of her life, a powerful reminder that God is always watching, always guiding, always speaking. We only need to listen,